Hi everyone, this is Selvi. Today's interview question is, what are the inputs and outputs of a sprint planning meeting? Before getting into inputs and outputs, let's try to understand about the sprint planning event. Sprint planning event is a Scrum event in which, as a team, we collaborate and finalize the sprint goal and prepare the sprint backlog which aligns with the sprint goal. While preparing the sprint backlog, we use the parameters like velocity and capacity as well the priority of the work items. This is the simple thing that happens in the sprint planning meeting. So it's very easy now with this definition and with this detail what happens in the sprint planning event to identify the inputs and outputs. First, let me talk about the output because we talked already on that. Because input little bit I'll go in detail. First, let me quickly summarize what are the outputs. Finalize the sprint goal. We should come up with the clear sprint goal, what we are going to achieve. That is one output we will be getting. The second one is the sprint backlog. So at the end of the sprint planning meeting, we will be getting the sprint goal of the sprint plus the sprint backlog. Now, little bit in detail about what is the sprint goal of that particular sprint and what is the sprint backlog. So, as a team, we should know what we are targeting to achieve in the sprint, right? Sprint can be for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever the length of the sprint may be. As a team, we should know what is our target. And to achieve the target, what are the work items that we need to implement, that also we should pick it up. That is nothing but our sprint goal and sprint backlog. So sprint backlog, with the help of product owner, team sits and work on it and prepare the sprint goal in the sprint planning meeting. So when we know that this is our target, this is our goal of the sprint, now to achieve this goal, what are the work items that we need to pick it up? That work item should have priority. Clear priority should be defined. Why clear priority? Because if we are working on unpriority or not high priority work items, then it's a trouble for us, because that is the whole purpose of having priority, right? So high priority items should come first. Who is going to help us in that? Product owner. That's why team should take product owner's input as well. So there is a collaboration required when preparing the sprint goal. Because based on the sprint goal only, we are going to create the sprint backlog. Sprint backlog are work items that are going to help us to achieve our sprint goal. So while preparing the sprint goal, we need to take the inputs from the product owner to understand the priority of the work, what we are going to do. Are we really picking up the priority work in our goal or not? That we should be very clear. Then we should go to the work items that are going to support in achieve this goal. That's how we prepare the sprint backlog. Now, while preparing the sprint backlog, even though my goal is, for example, how the goal looks like, I'll put a simple example. At the end of the sprint, we should be able to add, modify, and remove users. Develop functionalities to add, modify, and remove users in the portal. That is the goal. So these three are of high priority. So now we need to pull all the user stories that are going to support this. But while pulling, we realized we don't have that much bandwidth in our team. How we came to know? Because we know the capacity. So capacity of the team is not allowing to work on all these things. Now get back to the product owner. Product owner, what can we do? Because looks like we cannot implement the remove functionality. Now reduce the goal of the sprint. Develop the functionalities to add and remove users in the portal. Now try to pull all the user stories and see whether you have the opportunity to bring all the work items that are going to support to achieve this goal within the bandwidth of the team. Now it is successful. That's why I mentioned when preparing the sprint goal, product owners' collaboration with the team is very important because it's both sides. Product owner has an expectation of add, remove and delete. But team has the capacity of only to implement add and remove. So here comes the negotiation part, what we can do, what we can't do because of other challenges. That's how we negotiate and bring the finalized goal, which is one of the output of the sprint planning meeting. Now we know the goal. So accordingly, pull all the work items that are going to help us in achieving this goal from the product backlog. And now fit it as part of the sprint backlog. So this is the second output of the sprint planning. So we talked about the outputs. Now let's go back to the input. As I mentioned about priority, now you all are aware priority is one key thing. And yes, you all are aware the second key thing what I talked about, pull the product backlog items. So product backlog work items is the second input. Priority is the first input. Can we club this? Yes, we can club. What we can say? Prioritized and DOR met product backlog work items is one of the input. Oh, there is one more word I am introducing. DOR met. What is this? Even though it is priority, if the DOR checklist is not met for certain work items, how can we pull that as part of the sprint backlog? Which means how we can take it as part of the sprint execution. What is the whole purpose of definition of ready checklist? Definition of ready checklist is going to help the team to understand all the key areas that need to be met before picking that work item into the sprint backlog for execution. Right? Now, when DOR is not met, that means something is open. That means some dependency is there, or something is actually not available for team to start that work. Maybe acceptance criteria is incomplete, or relevant UI UX wireframes are not available, or the NFR related details are still under discussion. Any reason in that case, but DOR is not met. Now, even though it is of high priority, we can say to product owner, please product owner, we cannot pick this item. Reason being DOR is not met. There are some open items. That's why I mentioned prioritized and DOR met product backlog work items is one of the input. If priority is high and DOR is not met, no, we can't help. We cannot take that as part of our execution. Similarly, DOR is met. Every detail is available. But as per priority, it is of low priority. There are many other work items that has more priority than this. Then it needs to still stay in the product backlog. We cannot pull that for sprint backlog. Because maybe it is not going to give us a business value high, or it is not a work item which is of high priority for the business. That's why it is set as low priority, right? So it's very important. Priority and DOR should be met. Those work items are the input for the sprint planning. What is the second input? We talked about that as well. Team's velocity. Team's average velocity from the previous completed sprints. Because that gives a kind of guidance for us to commit on the work items. That gives a kind of clarity for us whether we are really going with the items that we can manage or we are over committing. To understand the clarity, this average velocity is a guidance. What is the third input? Team's available capacity for the sprint. This is going to be a real input to understand the bandwidth of the team. Because, as I mentioned, team has only the available bandwidth to work on only add and modify users, not on remove users. How we will be able to negotiate on that? When we have the capacity details. So, capacity information of the team is one more input. So, capacity information of the team is going to play a very key role while negotiating the details in the sprint goal as well preparing the sprint backlog. Similarly, team's velocity is going to give us a kind of guidance to ensure whether we are kind of overcommitting or we are on the border. Of course, it's a guidance, not a factor to decide. That's the difference between capacity and velocity. We have already discussed this in our previous episodes as well. So now, in a nutshell, input of the sprint planning meeting are prioritized and definition of ready-met product backlog items, team's capacity, and average velocity of the team. What are the outputs of the sprint planning meeting? Sprint goal and sprint backlog. I think we have covered, and it is also a good revision about the sprint planning event. Thanks everyone for listening. Happy learning and stay tuned.